Ceedee Lamb, 4-year extension. Adam, 136 million deal, 100 mil guaranteed. He is now the second highest annual salary for a wide receiver at 34 mil a year, which is one behind Justin Jefferson at the Minnesota Vikings, who's on 35, so only $1 million to play with there. Since drafting in 2020 from Alabama, 5,145 yards, 32 touchdowns for the wide receiver. And a receiver I think everyone knew was going to be decent in this league, but I don't think they really realized the heights that he was going to reach, considering that draft class of wide receivers that we had when he came in.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot, wasn't there? And so obviously it's he wasn't necessarily the main guy of that group at the time. So, but he's done really, really well, and he's shown that he is the guy in Dallas, and that he deserves to be paid. It's been a bit of a long-winded agreement. This one, it's been going on for quite a long time, but yeah, I mean, it's about time. If they want to be able to do anything, then they need to pay guys like Ceedee Lamb in order to be able to get anywhere. You know, like you say, we'll talk about the whole sort of the Cowboys and where they are as a whole a bit later, but it is something that they needed to do. And you know, we've got a guy here who I believe he was the number 1 or number 2 wide receiver last year, when it comes to the stats and you know, his yards and touchdowns and all of that. So yeah, I mean, these guys deserve to be paid. Like you say, Jefferson's been paid. Tyreek Hill seems that the Dolphins are just throwing money at Tyreek Hill, just, you know. So it's he deserves it. I think he's done well, and he's yeah, it's a good thing for him, and it's a good thing for the Cowboys in general.
I mean, there was a time, Johnny, where this offense ran through Ezekiel Elliott, and that has really sort of now transferred into the hands of Ceedee Lamb rather than the legs of Zeke, I suppose, with that transition. And really, this offense does tick all the way through Lamb's productivity, doesn't it? I mean, he's been splendid to watch year on year for the Dallas Cowboys, and it really sort of lives and dies by him in a way, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with that. I think, yeah, Ceedee Lamb has quite steadily, I think, progressed since he came into the league. But last year, stats-wise, he was, you know, he amassed the most receptions, had, I think, just under 1,800 yards. I think this year he is going in as the number 1 wide receiver. You know, obviously Justin Jefferson coming off an injury hit year, sticky situations regarding Jamar Chase and Brandon Ayuk. Obviously, you know, we think those will get solved. But yeah, Ceedee Lamb, I think, it's obviously very well deserving, and it's a really good thing for the Cowboys. I know we'll get onto it, you know, talking about what this means for their other players. But clearly, I think, you know, this is certainly on social media and you know, talking. Obviously, Micah Parsons on his own podcast, you know, congratulated Ceedee Lamb and said how, you know, big of a deal it is to, you know, not just obviously keeping him around, but he's obviously such a lethal weapon for the Cowboys. And yeah, this is exactly the sort of thing that the Cowboys need after a disappointing end to last year. You know, you mentioned Ezekiel Elliott coming back. There's question marks, I suppose, around the rest of the offense. Even at wide receiver, you know, outside of Lamb, there's not incredible depth. But yeah, that just goes to show just how big of an asset Lamb is. And yeah, I expect him to go even further, hopefully, you know, push towards the 2,000-yard mark this year, because yeah, he's obviously going to be amassing a lot of receptions as he was last year.
Do we think it's a bit surprising, though, that he didn't get above Jefferson or the same as Jefferson?
I think when you're in the ballpark of them players, you know, you are. I mean, some of these players are driven by they want to be the number 1 in the category, don't they? And I think he definitely wants that for himself. But the fact that he's in and around that, I think, still makes him sort of worthy of a top wide receiver status, I suppose. It's weird because I think this is due to my bias and my weird innate just not interested in the Cowboys at all. It's always weird for me to sort of see CD as being a top wide receiver? Like, and I know that's really stupid, but
I completely agree. I think he is. I think a little bit underrated. I think last year he was clearly the best wide receiver out there. But you know, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, they from day one. I'm not saying Ceedee Lamb wasn't fantastic in his early years, but from day one it was clear they were going to get these mega deals. Obviously, Jefferson has them. So I don't know. Is he still underrated despite clearly being right at the top of the wide receiver list?
Yeah. What do you reckon, Adam? Do you think he's
I think now he probably isn't. It kind of feels almost like by doing what he did last year, it does kind of like push him up into that upper echelon of wide receivers. I think the fact that, as you said earlier, Fred, it's like it used to be the Zeke show, and obviously them legs are knackered now, and it's like last year everything had to go through Lamb. Is I know they had a few other. They do have other weapons. They've got like Jake Ferguson, who at tight end has done pretty well for them last year and stuff like that. But the fact is that the number one read every single time was Lamb. So I do feel like he is the main guy there now, and that kind of gives him that sort of upper echelon in the same way that Jefferson, Jefferson hasn't got the Vikings to a Super Bowl, has he? I mean, it's they've kind of done similar things in their career now. And I think after last year, that kind of, shows that he's very, very capable, and that I think that people probably do think of him as a top tier guy now. I just think maybe he's still young, isn't he? Whereas for like not so much Jefferson, but certainly someone like Tyreek Hill, who's been there and done it for many years, I think he probably gets more. And even like someone like Cooper Kupp, who has struggled with injuries and hasn't been around as much, kind of feels like he's got more reputation purely because he's been there a lot longer. I wonder if maybe in a couple of years' time, if Lamb continues to do this in the same way that them guys have, then maybe he will get a little bit more as well. But for me, I look at him as though he's one of the top, probably it's Lamb, it's Hill, and it's Chase, isn't it, really? And I mean, not so much this year for Jefferson because of who his quarterback is, but Jefferson, they're the top 4 wide receivers. So yeah, I think that, to me, that they're pretty equal.